Hello, I'm here with Marcus McCauley from McCauley Family Farm in Boulder, Colorado. We're just going to chat with him a little bit about what he does here. So we're starting off with why he started this farm and why he feels it's important to farm in this way.
Thanks, Mandy.
Yeah.
So we started this farm 7 years ago, and at that time I was feeling a call back to the land and back into primary production, and spent some time in the culinary world, and was just starting a family, and knew that there was something on the land that was calling me. I've come to understand that call as a desire to heal people and the planet with delicious food. They're all connected.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important to farm in this way because I think our kids deserve a planet that is farmable, that is livable, a place where they can not only survive but where they can thrive.
Right. Yeah, and the kind of practices you're mentioning are kind of the realm of regenerative agriculture.
Yes.
And so what would be like the way you would want to explain that and how you farm?
Sure. So I think it's important to look at the context. Farming can be a pretty destructive practice. Mm-hmm. 30% of the world's farmable land in the last 40 years has gone out of production. And so we farm in a way that actually increases the land's ability to farm over time.
Right.
We farm in a way that increases the soil fertility, that increases the carbon in the soil, and leads to more energy-dense food, nutrient-dense food over time, and higher yields over time.
Yep, and it's not toxic because of the way that you're farming. You're not having to use a lot of inputs or anything like that.
Certainly. So we're modeling ecologies here.
Yep.
So ecosystems have closed loops. They're built. The conventional food production systems are typically linear, extractive. So you have depletion dynamics, and then you're utilizing chemicals that build up toxicity. So we're trying to mimic nature here with closed loops.
Right.
Right. So there's so things regenerate. There's not a buildup of toxins in the environment.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you farm in this way, typically the thing that allows you not to have chemical inputs is the plants actually have an immune system from the fact that they actually have healthy soil base, right?
Right. Yes, the soil food web is intact. We farm in a way that honors the diversity of life that's in the soil.
Right.
And when you do that, and you nurture that soil life, then the symbiotic relationship that exists between the soil microorganisms and the plant has there's this kind of virtuous cycle where the plant is able to feed those microorganisms, and then those microorganisms are in turn able to feed the plant and give the plant what it needs to be able to fully function.
Right. Yeah. Excellent. So what would you say the community, as far as like the surrounding community, what kind of a role do they play in what you do here? I know you have some volunteers that come on the farm and you do some educational stuff.
Certainly. Yeah, well, I mean, we couldn't do what we do if it wasn't for the people that make it happen.
Yeah.
That human element. This whole farm system we're building with annuals and perennials and ruminants and birds and fungi and insects and humans.
Right.
All working together to create something more than the sum of the parts.
Right.
It's a crucial element. And I say, just starting out, really the core of the foundation is our staff.
Right.
The people who live in our community, who feel a love and a connection and a dedication to this land and to farming in this way. So it starts with them.
Right.
We also have amazing CSA customer base, folks who have committed to supporting us on a monthly basis, and they get a share of the food that comes from this farm.
Yeah.
And also interns, volunteers, apprentices, people in the community who also feel a call to the land to come and to help out and to also learn, and to kind of to initiate a relationship of reciprocity with the land here.
Right. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, so earlier we were here filming and we saw some of the movement of the animals. Could you go a little bit over like the holistic rangeland management or holistic management of how you move animals to regenerate land?
Mm-hmm. So we're again, we're in a broken ecosystem here in this part of the world. The bison, of course, were killed off 150 years ago. This is a major flyway of the United States. It's highly depleted. So we're reintroducing grazing animals and birds into this land, and we're taking land that has been highly degraded, that doesn't have a whole lot of pasture, and trying to bring that back.
Yeah, because animals were taken off of it. And,
certainly.
Yeah.
It's obvious that ruminants are cows, grazing animals, need grass, but it might not be as obvious to people that the grass needs them as well, right? They co-evolved over millennia. So we're bringing those animals back, and we're moving them around in a way that simulates the kind of grazing pressures that those grasses co-evolved with the animals to expect.
Right.
We're moving them around rapidly, and we're bringing in birds, in this case chickens, behind them. And that has had an amazing impact on our land and helping us to regenerate pasture pretty rapidly here and to rebuild topsoil.
Right. Yeah, excellent. So what is your hope for the future of food, and what is it going to take to get there?
Mm-hmm. The future of food I see is this type of farming, not necessarily scaled, but replicated.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Hundreds of thousands or millions of times around the world.
Right.
I see relationship, rediscovery of the land and of our relationship to who we are and where we come from.
Right.
That we are part of this land, that we come from it, and we will return to it again.
Yep.
And so while we are here, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to take care of it and to be nurtured by it and to nurture it.
Right.
And again, to enter into that reciprocal relationship that leads to the most delicious food possible.
Right.
I see communities coming together again to rebuild bioregional food systems all over the planet.
Yeah.
And it's taking the baton from our ancestors, taking that gift that they have given us, bestowed upon us, these foods that we get to take care of, these domesticated animals and crops, and we get to do that now in a way, an understanding of ecosystem science and ecologies, to utilize that to go take that even further, and to build a place where there's a land, where there's a mosaic of urban farms surrounding that, more kind of rural farms that still serve the cities, but then beyond that, like real wild places.
Right.
So a mosaic of different functionalities that have a place for all forms of life.
Right.
The humans and the animals and plants that we take care of, and also wild beings as well.
Right. Kind of bringing in that full system again, the full ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, is there any other kind of things sticking out in your mind that you would love to talk about, or have we kind of covered? I know when I was here on a tour a few weeks ago, you had mentioned the open space, and you might be
that's
starting to do some
piece.
regeneration. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to talk about context. I think it's really important to address what people's assumptions are.
Right.
For instance, with our chickens, our pasture-raised chickens, I think a lot of people think that the organic or free-range chicken they're buying at the store is chicken that's raised like this way. But in fact, organic and free-range chicken is not required to be outside.
Right.
So in fact, it is 30,000 birds in a barn with access to a porch they're afraid to use.
Right, because they don't even know how.
Right.
Right.
And so they have short legs, and they have these mutated double breasts, and they are harvested about 5.5 weeks old. And they don't have any color in the skin because they're not actually eating grass. And so, yeah, I think that's important. I think that's a big message that really needs to get out there to people.
Right.
Most folks don't know that.
Right.
And so I call our chicken life-changing chicken, because when a chicken actually gets to live its life outside and do what it does, it's able to take in those nutrients from the plants that are getting them from the soil food web, and then into your body. When your brain has what it needs to function properly, and your heart has what it needs in your gut, and you're getting these things from your food, it changes your life.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, from the inside out.
From the inside out. And so what's possible with food systems that are regenerative versus what people are getting right now and what people think they might be getting from like industrial organic food,
Right.
it's vastly different. Right?
Worlds apart.
Worlds apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
I think there can be some confusion with some of the marketing. You'll have this, nice red barn with the cows on the pasture, or the chickens or whatever, and it's like that's not actually what's happening.
certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so people are like, well, how do I find this food? Well, there's really no shortcut for relationships.
Right. Yep.
And just going on and meeting your farmer, and getting to know your food and where it comes from.
Right.
And gaining some intimacy with your food, because what it is it's gaining intimacy with the land,
Right.
with where you come from,
Right.
with your community, with all of these different threads. You start to pull on that thread of like, what am I eating and where does it come from? It's a journey to the self.
Right.
It's a rediscovery of who we really are.
Right.
And it's extremely pleasurable.
Yeah.
Again, it leads to the most delicious food people have ever had. Our chickens, this yellow on the skin and the collagen that's in the muscle, it's deeply satisfying. Like
That's
it's soul food.
life-giving.
It's
Yeah.
life-giving. Yeah. I mean, it's really wonderful to feed the food that we have here to people and just see the smiles on people's faces.
Yep.
Yeah, and see the contentment.
Yep. And have them also understand how much more flavor and nutrition is in that food.
Yes.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so another context that I think is important is to talk about this desertification that's happening here in Boulder County on open space. You drive on the country roads around here, and the land right now, we've had an amazing amount of rain in the spring.
Right.
There's land that's bare right now.
Yeah.
It's not even growing weeds.
Right.
And that mostly is open space.
Right. And it's because it doesn't have interaction with the ecosystem the way it used to, because you don't have herds of animals moving through.
Right.
And
yeah, they're broken ecosystems, and then we have on top of that climate change, and then we have on top of that some of our well-intentioned management policies, and then there's a host of things that have led to rapid degradation.
Right.
Rapid. I mean, it's taken millennia to build up these topsoils, and you see these windstorms, and within less than 10 years of the city owning this space, the topsoil is gone.
Right. Because there's not any kind of holistic management happening. They're just kind of, yeah.
So we can't take
well-intentioned, but
well-intentioned.
Right.
It's great that we have this to talk about with open space that hasn't been developed.
Right.
But we can't take a broken ecosystem and put it on the shelf and say we want to preserve that.
Right.
Especially a brittle, arid environment.
Right.
We can't. It's gonna degrade.
Right.
And so right now, I would guess that our open space right now is a net emitter of carbon.
Right.
Taxpayers in the city of Boulder, the land you own, your open space is a net contributor to the climate change right now.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be that way.
Right. It can become a carbon sink.
It could become an amazing carbon sink.
Yep.
We could sequester tons and tons of carbon in these soils.
Right.
And we could do it by recreating ecosystems, by creating nutrient-dense food. And I mean, I would love to see, us feeding our kids in the public schools with the food that's coming from regenerative farming practices on open space land.
Yes. Yep. Well, we talked about the scalable aspect, and like you said, it's more like hundreds of thousands of these kinds of farms is the scalable aspect. Having small farms multiply as opposed to the one big farm that's becoming degenerated. So yeah, and the things we can do with schools and with hospitals and just feeding people food that's actually healthy. Yeah.
Right. And changing the baseline of public health.
Right. Exactly.
Our kids' generation will be the first generation to have a lower life expectancy.
Yep.
We've had this kind of, I think it's just been taken for granted that people's lives will get better and better and better. But
the food has degraded.
The food is degraded.
Right.
We're getting really cool gadgets, but there's a lot of other metrics that are getting worse right now. And for me, I think if we can solve the food issue, then we're going to solve a lot of the other ones, or we're going to at least improve a lot of the other ones.
Yep. And it provides more of a foundation for actual health and for climate health as well, soil regeneration. Yeah, all of it comes back online.
Economies.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, the water cycle.
Yep. Small water cycle comes back online. Yeah, exactly. It's awesome. I love it because it's reconnecting people's minds to the importance of land and being connected to where our food comes from and the people who are actually growing it, and that brings communities together again too, which we've lost a lot.
Yep.
So yeah, awesome. Well, it's starting to get pretty cold out here.
Yeah, here's that water cycle happening right now.
Yeah, that's great. Just right here though. Well, thanks so much for talking with us today.
Thank you,
it's been a
Mandy.
pleasure.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.